Too close to call. Heavy hitters rally voters ahead of tomorrow's Georgia Senate runoff elections. The newest members. Lawmakers in the 117th Congress are sworn in with a new chaplain. Accepting a resignation. Why the Archbishop of Minsk has stepped down days after returning to his homeland. And New Year's greeting. The request Pope Francis makes to the faithful regarding how to approach 2021. On EWTN News Nightly for Monday, January 4th, 2021. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. We are now just one day away from a crucial vote in Georgia. President Donald Trump and President-elect Joe Biden are in Georgia tonight before elections to decide which party will control the Senate at the outset of President-elect Biden's tenure at the White House. We begin this evening with correspondent Mark Irons. Mark?
Tracy, well, both Republicans and Democrats have spent millions of dollars and plenty of time in Georgia ahead of these two Senate runoff races. And pro-life advocates say this election could have huge implications.
In the 11th hour,
we're going to fight to send David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler back to Washington, D.C. Are you with me?
The vice president's final pitch in battleground Georgia ahead of tomorrow's election. The Democrats are out in full force as well, with Vice President-elect Kamala Harris talking about the importance of the U.S. Senate.
I have seen that body of 100 people, 100 Americans, make the decisions that impact over 320 million Americans.
The Republican and Democratic candidates making final pleas.
I think that the American people and the people of Georgia have had enough with the kind of negative politics.
They mean socialism. You know, it's high taxes to fund their big government, to take away your private insurance.
The pro-life Susan B. Anthony list is throwing all its support behind Senate Republican candidates Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue in Georgia, calling them pro-life champions.
It is incredibly important that every pro-life voter gets out to vote.
SBA Vice President of Communications Mallory Quigley expressing grave concern if Democrats John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock were to get elected and what it could mean for pro-life gains in recent years.
If we lose these Senate races in Georgia, all of that progress stands a good chance of it being lost. It's incredibly important that if you know anyone in Georgia, that you tell them to get out and vote.
President Donald Trump and President-elect Joe Biden will host dueling rallies in Georgia tonight. And the former vice president was the first presidential nominee to win Georgia in 3 decades. In the studio, Mark Irons, EWTN News Nightly.
Georgia isn't just making headlines with tomorrow's election. A weekend phone call first posted by the Washington Post between Georgia's Secretary of State and President Trump is coming under fire. The president is accused of pressuring the Secretary of State to reverse the outcome of the presidential election in Georgia. It comes just 2 days before Congress meets to confirm President-elect Joe Biden's victory. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen?
Tracy, good evening to you. In just over 2 weeks from now, President-elect Joe Biden is set to move into the White House. But tonight, President Donald Trump is not giving up his fight to win the 2020 election. All eyes are, of course, on Georgia. Joe Biden won that state by fewer than 12,000 votes.
We think that if you check the signatures, a real check of the signatures going back in Fulton County, you'll find at least a couple of 100,000 of forged signatures.
Taking heat for a weekend phone call, President Donald Trump tweets, "The surrender caucus within the Republican Party will go down in infamy as weak and ineffective guardians of our nation. We're willing to accept the certification of fraudulent presidential numbers." President Trump also told the Georgia Secretary of State that he's looking for a specific number.
I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state, and flipping the state is a great testament to our country.
Georgia Republican Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan called the conversation inappropriate.
And quite honestly, I can't imagine anybody on his staff encouraging that call or not giving him the advice to hang up and move on to the next subject.
Republican Congressman Ken Buck of Colorado does not believe there is widespread voter fraud.
But I also think there should be an examination at some point about how we make our election process more fair and credible.
And Vice President-elect Kamala Harris slammed the Georgia phone call.
And it was a bald-faced, bold abuse of power by the President of the United States.
Also of note, earlier today, President Donald Trump awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom to California Representative Devin Nunes. The president says the congressman, quote, uncovered the greatest scandal in American history, referring to what the president calls the Russia hoax. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Vice President Mike Pence will preside over a joint session of Congress on Wednesday to certify the presidential election results. But at least 12 Republican senators and at least 140 House members will object to the vote certification. They want an electoral commission to investigate allegations of voter fraud with a 10-day emergency audit. The joint session to count the Electoral College votes has faced objections before. In 2017, several House Democrats challenged President Trump's win. Also on Capitol Hill, in the first vote for the new session of Congress, House members re-elected Democrat Nancy Pelosi as Speaker yesterday. But before handing over the Speaker's gavel, GOP leader Kevin McCarthy accused Nancy Pelosi of leading the least productive Congress in nearly 50 years.
The Speaker-elect, Nancy Pelosi of the state of California.
For the fourth time, Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi holds the reins of power in the House. By a count of 216 votes, Congresswoman Pelosi narrowly beat out Republican Kevin McCarthy for the role of Speaker. The GOP leader lost the Speaker's title by just 7 votes. And he warned voters sent a clear message in November by electing a dozen new House Republicans, pushing out Democratic incumbents.
Madam Speaker, as I hand you this gavel, I just ask that you keep in mind of all the voices in America that have a voice on this floor.
But House Democrats are pushing ahead with their party's agenda, including a provision in the official House rules to eliminate gender identities, like chairwoman or chairman. Democratic Congressman Emanuel Cleaver even tried to modify the biblical word amen, meaning so be it.
A man and a woman.
Earlier Sunday,
the prayer will be offered by our chaplain, Father Conroy.
Wearing a mask with an abbreviation for the Latin motto of the Jesuit order, which means for the greater glory of God. Father Patrick Conroy helped close the 116th session of Congress with his final prayer as House chaplain.
And where the efforts of this Congress have fallen short, we ask your forgiveness and the forgiveness of all Americans.
This morning,
the prayer will be offered by our new chaplain, Margaret Grun-Kibben.
The first woman congressional chaplain, Presbyterian minister, and retired Navy Rear Admiral Margaret Grun-Kibben offered her first prayer on the House floor. And in the Senate Friday, a historic night. By a vote of 81 to 13, senators passed the National Defense Authorization Act into law, overriding President Trump's veto. It is the first veto override of President Trump's term. Joining now on Skype is Tim Carney, senior political columnist for the Washington Examiner and resident fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Tim, welcome back. Always great to see you. We have a lot to get to, but I want to start off by looking ahead at tomorrow's runoff elections in Georgia. Both parties are going all out. What are you keeping your eye on tomorrow?
Well, the polls have shown that it's basically a tie, but in recent days, Jon Ossoff has also pulled ahead of incumbent Senator David Perdue. And for the last couple of weeks, you've had Raphael Warnock leading Kelly Loeffler. So right now, if the polls were right, which is a big if, then Democrats would win both seats, which of course would give them a 50-50 Senate and make Kamala Harris a tiebreaker. So this could go any way on either one of those races, but what we're looking at is whether turnout is going to be depressed, and this could fall on Donald Trump's shoulders. He's made so many people feel that, so many of his party feel that the election can't be fair, that there's worry among Georgia Republicans that Republicans voters will stay home because they're discouraged.
Hundreds of millions of dollars in campaign spending has really flooded the state. And I know that you've taken a look at that for the Washington Examiner. What did your reporting show in the race between Democrat Jon Ossoff and Republican, that is, Senator David Perdue?
Jon Ossoff's money is really incredible. His number one source of money is the employees and executives of Google. He's raised about $1 million from just that one company, not the corporation, of course, but the individuals who list that as their employer. And in fact, he's raised more money from California, Jon Ossoff has, than he has from his own state of Georgia, which is to say the big tech companies like Apple and Google and Facebook, their employees are pouring millions of dollars into electing Ossoff, while Perdue's top sources of money are what you'd expect from a Georgia senator, right? The two biggest employers are Delta and Home Depot, and that's Perdue's two biggest sources of money, compared to Ossoff, where it's Google, Facebook, and the University of California.
Well, Tim, we only have probably about 30 seconds or so, but I really want to get to this last question. The other headline out of Georgia, that is, as you know, President Trump's recorded phone call to Georgia's Secretary of State. What was your reaction to that audio, and how do you think that will play with voters tomorrow?
It really sounds like Trump is, just trying to get the people in power to find just enough votes for him to win. And I think for a lot of swing voters, suburban college-educated voters, where the accusation against David Perdue is that he's a crook, if Perdue is fine with what Trump's doing, it turns off a lot of potential swing voters. And I think that phone call could end up tipping the balance in favor of the Democratic candidates in both of those Senate races.
Okay, we're going to leave it right there. Thank you so much, Tim. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, there are reports that the leader of the underground Catholic Church in China has died. Asia News is reporting that Bishop Andrew Han Jingto passed away last Wednesday. He became a bishop in the 1980s and remained under constant threat from the communist authorities. His diocese included 30,000 Catholics, most of whom belonged to the underground church. The bishop was 99 years old. In Nigeria, a Catholic bishop is free today after he and his driver were kidnapped last week. The diocese in southern Nigeria says Auxiliary Bishop Moses Chikwi was released unhurt and without ransom. The 59-year-old was abducted by gunmen in southeastern Nigeria December 27th. Recently, there have been kidnappings of priests and seminarians in Nigeria. However, this is the first time that a bishop was abducted. The Pope has accepted the resignation of the Archbishop of Minsk less than 2 weeks after he was allowed to return to his home country. Archbishop Tadeusz Kondrusiewicz resigned on his 75th birthday, which follows canon law. Joining us now is EWTN Newsroom correspondent Colm Flynn. Colm, good to see you. We've been following the story closely, but remind us why the Archbishop was barred from his country for 4 months.
Good evening, Tracy. Well, at the end of August of last year, the Belarusian government invalidated Archbishop Kondrusiewicz's passport and refused to allow him to re-enter his home country of Belarus. This was after a visit to Poland. Now, news of this spread, and foreign affairs, including from the United States, decried his treatment and appealed to the Belarusian government to let the Archbishop come home. The Archbishop had spoken in defense of protesters following the disputed re-election of the Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, who won 80% of the vote and has been the president of Belarus for 26 years. Now, the Archbishop had also prayed outside a prison where arrested protesters and even some priests were being held. Well, after 4 months, Belarusian authorities permitted his return to the country to celebrate Christmas. This was at the request of Pope Francis, and he did return to Belarus on December the 24th, Christmas Eve. And the first thing he did, Tracy, when he went back and he was on Belarusian soil, was that he knelt down and he kissed the ground.
Wow. Well, Colm, as we know, this resignation, though, really isn't a surprise and did follow church law. But what else do you know about it?
Yes, Tracy, that's right. The resignation came on the Archbishop's 75th birthday, and canon law asks that bishops offer their resignation to the Pope at the age of 75. Now, it is up to the Pope whether he accepts the resignation or not. And in Belarus, Catholics have been honouring the Archbishop with a special video. In it, they shine a light on his 30-year contribution to the revival of the Church in Belarus and as well throughout the former Soviet Union. He was, in fact, the first Catholic Bishop of Moscow immediately after the end of communism. And in Belarus, he reopened about 100 previously closed churches and initiated the publication of the Order of Mass and the Catechism in the Belarusian language after gaining religious freedom. Well, today, the country has 8 dioceses and about 500 parishes and nearly 1,000 priests and consecrated men and women.
And Colm, quickly, do we have any idea who will replace him at the Archdiocese?
Tracy, the Pope hasn't yet named a successor to Minsk, but the Vatican did appoint 75-year-old Bishop Casimir V. Lescellers to serve as apostolic administrator to lead the Archdiocese for just now. And before Archbishop Kondrusiewicz resigned, he and all the bishops in Belarus decided to dedicate the new year of 2021 to the Church as the sacrament of universal salvation. And during this deep socio-political crisis in Belarus, he encouraged the Catholics in the country to use this year to study the history of both the Church in Belarus and around the world in order to better understand the importance of the Church in God's salvation of the world. Tracy?
Colm Flynn, EWTN Newsroom correspondent. Thank you so much for that report, Colm.
Thank you, Tracy.
Coming up, new developments in how the Vatican will distribute the coronavirus vaccine. Dr. Mariannette Miller-Meeks joined members of the 117th Congress sworn into office yesterday. She now represents Iowa's 2nd Congressional District. The representative won by just 6 votes. She takes office as her Democratic challenger continues to contest the loss, claiming not all legal ballots were properly counted. Representative Mariannette Miller-Meeks joins me now on Skype. Congresswoman, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. And first off, congratulations. How are you feeling right now?
Well, thank you so much. I'm a little bit overwhelmed, as you could imagine. It's like, I know the colloquial drinking from the fire hose, but it's more like going down Niagara Falls in a barrel. But so I'm trying to get things set up. So it's a little overwhelming, a little daunting. It's a tremendous responsibility to be elected to Congress. And it's very humbling. You look at the Capitol and you say to yourself, you're working in that building. You're representing, 600,000 individuals and people, and also trying to represent your country as well. So it's a very humbling experience. But we're excited to get to work and to tackle those things that we campaigned on and try to, help get people through the pandemic and prepare for the next one, to try to address healthcare costs with access, affordability, and portability, lower prescription drug prices, and infrastructure, which includes broadband. So, we're excited to get to work, but we've got a couple of procedural things that we have to do this week first.
I know that you first ran for Congress back in 2008. Can you quickly talk about what this moment means for you right now, and what does it represent?
Well, it's a decades-long process in the making, and again, it's very humbling. I hope that people that see my story or listen to this, if they have one takeaway, it's that if you have a passion and God has given you the talent to do something and you're called to serve, that you never quit, you never give up, and you keep working. So it's again, I can't describe it other than it's exciting, it's rewarding, but it's also very humbling. And I hope that people take that spirit of resilience and grit and tenacity with them wherever they go. God doesn't always make a perfectly smooth road for us, but that doesn't mean that we're supposed to, when the bicycle gets into a pothole, that we just give up, leave it there, and walk off. We're supposed to pick it back up, get back on, and keep doing the work that we're intended to do while we're on the earth.
Absolutely. Quickly, I know that your victory is still being challenged by your opponent. Can you tell us where things stand?
It was very nice to be sworn in yesterday and to be sworn in without a lot of fireworks or drama. And so that was a very great experience for me and my family, and especially my husband. And then, but there is this process or proceeding that's going on. It is under the Constitution. She does have this option and this pathway to go down. It's very unfortunate that she did not, however, pursue action and redress through the Iowa courts. Any ordinary citizen would have to go through a court system if they thought that something was, inappropriate or they had been aggrieved in some way. So we won on election night. We won when the 24-county audit and canvass was completed. We won on the recount, and she could have gone to the Iowa courts to address the 22 ballots that she has now put forward to the House Committee on Administration, which, as you know, is a partisan political process. Right now it's controlled by the majority party. And if she would have been able to win in the Iowa courts, she would have gone to the Iowa courts. But she stepped over them. And really is disenfranchising hundreds of thousands of voters and not listening to the people of Iowa in whom they had selected for their representative. Granted, it's a narrow margin, but our law is that it's 50% plus one, and we achieved that standard. And so it's very gratifying to be sworn in, and we'll continue to go through this process. But while we're going through this process that is permitted under the Constitution, the people in Iowa deserve to have a representative. They deserve to have someone there that will be able to address their concerns and to, try to bring their voice to Congress. So until I'm told otherwise, I'm going to keep working to represent the people of Iowa.
Representative Mariannette Miller-Meeks, Republican from Iowa, thank you again so much for your time and congratulations.
Thank you so much, Tracy, and I look forward to talking with you more in the future.
People in Britain are beginning to get a second vaccine today. Doctors are administering the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine.
To have this protection straight away is a great honour, really. And being an Oxford man, being an Oxford University man, I was absolutely delighted that they'd done it, and I'd like to congratulate them.
More than 1 million doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine are now available in Britain, and tens of millions more will be delivered in the coming weeks. Coronavirus vaccines are scheduled to arrive in Vatican City next week. Priority will be given to the elderly. The Holy See has purchased a low-temperature refrigerator to store the vaccine. So far, the Vatican has reported 27 positive COVID cases. The head of the Diocese of Bridgeport in Connecticut has tested positive for COVID-19. Bishop Frank Coggiano is in isolation. The diocese says that he is not showing any symptoms but has suspended public appearances for 10 days. Up next, we recap a busy Christmas season for Pope Francis. Plus, the Holy Father makes a request of the faithful for the new year. Pope Francis remained busy during the Christmas season, but his celebrations were very different this year because of the pandemic. At his Mass on Christmas Eve, he called the birth of Christ a new beginning for the faithful.
La gioia più grande della vita è la nascita di un bambino.
The Mass in St. Peter's Basilica was moved up several hours to comply with Italy's 10 p.m. curfew. During his homily, the Holy Father noted that Christ was born into poverty, which shows the faithful that we should love the weak and those in need. Pope Francis delivered another message on Christmas Day.
Abbiamo più che mai bisogno di fraternità.
The Holy Father stressed the importance of family and also of good relations between nations. He delivered the special blessing from the Apostolic Palace rather than St. Peter's Square. And in a rarity at the Vatican, the Holy Father did not pray the traditional Te Deum New Year's Day Mass. Pope Francis opted out because of back pain. Instead, Cardinal Giovanni Battista Re and the Vatican Secretary of State, Cardinal Pietro Parolin, rang in the new year. And finally tonight, Pope Francis asked the faithful to take care of each other in the new year.
Invitiamolo che lui veda le nostre piaghe.
At his Sunday address in the Vatican, the Holy Father says helping those in need should be a priority for everyone In 2021, he asked that we pay special attention to those suffering from the pandemic, and by doing so, we can ensure that the new year will be successful regardless of anything else that may happen. We thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.